Luke is here. So Luke, tell us about your car.
So this is a 2003 E46 M3 that is pretty much stock except for a few modifications to the cooling system and the stereo system, which is what I believe we're going to be showing today.
What's the horsepower on this?
Factory spec is 333 to the wheel, and to the engine I suspect. So I've not had it on the dyno. I suspect somewhere in the high 280s to the wheels.
Cool. Cool. All right, show us some more stuff. What do we got here?
So this is a Nexus 7 tablet that I have installed into the car, and I'll go ahead and turn the car to on so it'll kick on here. The reasons why I have gone with this kind of a setup, I previously wanted to go with a Android Auto system or a Apple CarPlay system when the factory radio in this car died on me. The issue was, the more I looked into it, the more I was disappointed with what those aftermarket solutions can do. They both required you, at least at the time, to have your phone physically connected to the system for it to work, and I didn't want that. I wanted to be able to just get into the car and go. And those systems, for, let's call it regulatory reasons, they're kind of a nanny to you. They don't let you do whatever you would want to do. They're very limited as far as being able to select music while you're in motion. So this system, when you first turn the car on, as you can see, just pops up this telemetry information. And this is because I have a system that is tapping into the iBus for this car. These older BMWs still run on the iBus. They've not switched over to the CAN bus yet. So I can get into a little bit further how the iBus integration works and how my OBDII integration works and the different softwares that I'm running to be able to do this. But the basic stuff that you can see so far here is it is just running Android, because this is a Nexus 7 tablet. So I have my music and navigation. So any kind of music that you want to have, you can play. I particularly use the Google Play All Access music. You can do Spotify or whatever you wanted. Navigation, I'm using Google Maps, but again, you could use whatever you want, Waze, whatever, it doesn't matter, it all works. This will do anything that you want it to do because it's just an Android tablet. So the first of the softwares that I'm running is that software for doing the iBus integration, and that allows me to get this data, which comes up as soon as the car is running. And you'll notice even that it's showing only one of my headlights lit because it's warning me that I have a turn signal that doesn't work. So if I flip these to high beams, you can even see it coming on, or you can see the turn signals indicating on the light, and that's because it's communicating back and forth with the car. I can even, if I lock the doors, you'll see the lock indicator come up on the corner there. And since this is a two-way communication over the iBus, I can even use it to unlock the doors.
Get out.
It is by far the best that I have seen for doing this, and there is one particular reason why I like the software so much. So even if I'm not actively using the software, the main reason I wanted it is because since it is tapped into the iBus and the tablet is now decoding the iBus signals, my steering wheel controls still work. So I can adjust the volume and do play and skip track on the steering wheel, and it will still work.
Sweet.
So beyond just the normal software stuff it can do, it's running an aftermarket kernel by a guy named Timur, T-I-M-U-R. I think that's how you pronounce it. I'm not entirely sure. And what that allows it to do is a few different things. One, it allows you to do audio out of the USB port on the tablet while it is also charging through the USB port of the tablet, which I found out this particular tablet didn't do before. It allows for quick charging on this tablet, which it didn't do before. And most importantly, it comes with its own little power management system, so that we can monitor the power management and set up some different settings for if we want to do fast charging or firm sleep. And essentially what that does is, because the tablet has a battery in it, of course, if I was to turn the car off, it's receiving, you can see it's up in the corner here, it's charging at the moment. Anytime the car is on, it is feeding power to it and it is charging. If we turn the car off and it loses power, if we were not running an aftermarket kernel or some other kind of software to handle this, the tablet would stay on until the battery had died, and then it would turn off. But with this aftermarket kernel, it detects that I've turned the car off and then starts its shutdown routine and just goes to sleep. And what I have found is once it is in its deep sleep mode, it will go for a couple of weeks before the battery has died. So if you're driving the vehicle pretty regularly, you will not ever have a problem. So I have this tablet installed in both of my cars. I also have a 325 that I drive as my daily driver. The daily driver's battery in that car never dies because I drive it every day to work. So the tablet is always charged on that car. This one, if I will not drive it for a couple of weeks, the tablet's battery will die. But it's not really a problem because then the next time you start the car, it starts charging, and once it gets up to enough charge, it will turn back on again. So
what's the time frame on that? Is it a couple minutes or is it longer?
The way that this works is it's only a few minutes to get it to that point, but if it is like dead when you start the car, it will not recognize that the car is running when it gets up to charge. So it needs to charge a little bit, and then the next time you cycle the car, like you park at the shop or whatever, the next time you turn it on, it will turn on just fine.
Mm-hmm.
Occasionally, if I know I'm getting ready to do a long road trip and I know I haven't, let's say it's the winter, and I haven't driven the car a lot, I'll take the tablet out, take it upstairs and charge it. I'm also working on a more permanent solution where somebody makes for this panel right here an aftermarket solution that has 2 USB ports here instead of this. And I'm going to set it up so that one is an out, one is an in. And then when this car is sitting in the garage, I can just feed a USB cable into here, plug it in, and then the tablet can be charging when I'm not running the car for a long period of time.
Sweet.
So let's take this out and show a little bit about how this works. So the cool part for me about this tablet system is it's only held in by these 2 screws. So with those 2 screws out, you just remove this, and it is 1 cable to do the USB, and that's the only thing connected to this tablet. So you can see when I flip it around, it's just an Asus Nexus 7 Gen 2. It's a 16 gig tablet. It's not even the SIM one that takes the SIM card. And the reason for that is because of cost. So when I turn this on, it will tether over Bluetooth to my phone to get internet for streaming the music, doing the navigation, all that other stuff. The version that does have the SIM card in it, so that this tablet itself could have internet and not need to tether, was $350, and this one was $120. So that extra $230-ish was not worth not having to tether it to my phone for me. So this bezel here, a lot of people will just buy normal off-the-shelf double DIN bezel frames, and they work. The issue is the open hole for the screen is much wider, so you end up seeing parts of the tablet that are not screen. And I really wanted this to look as OEM as possible. There's just double-sided tape around, 3M double-sided tape's my favorite, around the bezel frame, and then 2 screwed-in brackets that I gave it to give it a little bit of extra connection, and they are not coming off. This thing is in there really well. So then let's see in here and see the other stuff that we have in here. All right, so here are the guts of how this works, and I will explain all these different pieces here. The first one I want to point out is this module right here, which is called a Joy-Con. This is not being used anymore. So before, that software that allowed me to use the steering wheel controls was out, people were using these boards called Joy-Cons. These Joy-Con boards will connect to either iBus, CAN bus, or analog. So if you do not happen to have a BMW, you can use this on any vehicle, supposedly, because it will be able to do an analog signal for steering wheel controls. And this is just taking those signals, converting them into USB commands, sending them out the other side as a USB keyboard command into the tablet and telling it what to do. The only downside with it is that translation takes a little bit of time. There's a delay when you push the buttons and when it does what you want, which is why I've replaced it with this, which is the USB CAN bus adapter made by a guy in Germany. I believe his name is Ressler, but it's R-E-S-L-E-R. But I'm not very fluent in my German, so I'm probably pronouncing that incorrectly. But this is just power, ground. The green wire is not set for anything in this particular application. I just have it set up, and then white is hooked into the iBus line. If you look deep back in there, I can't dig it out right now, but that's the wiring harness. So this entire system was just, I bought a regular radio harness like you would buy for an aftermarket radio, and then wired it into the different aspects I needed for this tablet, and then that hooks into the factory radio harness. So this entire setup is powered audio and data through the factory radio harness. You don't need to run any new lines or any of that kind of stuff. And if you look carefully in the back, you see some lines that are looped back on themselves. I know it's a little bit difficult. I have some pictures I can send you to put up with this video, but I have a pro tip for everybody because I've seen a few different people do this. Usually, the way that they are doing the audio jack is they take the ground and the positive for all 4 audio channels and then solder them together and then hook them to an 1/8 inch audio jack. So they have 8 lines running into the back of an 1/8 inch audio jack, which is very, very hard to do. So instead, if you daisy chain them back onto each other in the pinouts, which is why you see the loops, is it comes out the pin and then jumps into the next and then jumps into the next, then you end up with just 3 lines, left, right, and ground, running into your audio jack, and it is way cleaner. So that line hooks into the back of this, which is my USB audio DAC. This is an option you don't necessarily need, which I'll go into when we talk about ways to do this a little bit cheaper. I'm trying to remember the brand name of this one. It is FIIO, and I believe it's the K10 or the K10 Plus. I'll have to look it up. I can send you the details of it later. We can mark all this stuff in the description, I guess, if you wanted to. But this is what allows me to get audio out of the USB port on the tablet instead of out of the headphone jack on the tablet, which notoriously is not a very high quality DAC. And then that just runs out in the backside. There is that 1/8 inch jack that I made that goes into the audio. So this is basically just feeding the left, right, front, and rear audio channel for this car. Now, because this is USB and it's a tablet, there is no front back. It's stereo. So I do have left to right fade. I do not have front to rear fade. The other fortunate thing about this car is BMW does not integrate their amps into the head unit. My amp is in my trunk. So by removing the head unit, I then did not have to add an amp, which if we're doing it, say, on your Tahoe, we will probably need to add an amp because by removing the head unit, we're going to take the amp out.
Can we do it in addition to the head unit and just do it further down in the...
There are some people that choose to do that, and I decided not to because I could not find a reason why I would keep the head unit.
Okay.
But there are a bunch of people that just have these mounted somewhere else and then run audio out into the auxiliary and then run it through the factory radio or aftermarket radio. But once I started digging deeper into it and realizing this was going to be my new radio, I realized I don't need that anymore.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
So the other,
does it give you, you know, one of the things that I like about the radio is the ability to set crossovers and stuff like that.
So the software that I had that you popped up that allowed me to do the steering wheel controls and that data, he also makes a software for doing equalizing.
Okay.
It will allow me to do, again, left, right, but not front, back, because this doesn't understand 4-channel. And so the other items that we have in here, so as you'll notice, the USB bus adapter plugs into a 4-port USB hub that I have in here. I have since switched to a thinner, skinnier 4-port one by a company called Anchor. And behind that is another, this USB one here is the one that's feeding my DAC. So the way this works is the tablet gets hooked into here, and it goes into the splitter. This splitter is just getting power from this DC to DC. Let me move this out of your way. This DC to DC power supply right here. This particular one is a 10 amp because I was doing some experimentation with some other hardware. I've run this system on just a 3 amp and it was perfectly happy. So this Y cable here is just injecting power into here and into this tablet. So it will charge the tablet and get audio through the one jack. Then it goes into the USB hub where the audio is split out to the DAC and the controller for the iBus is plugged in. And that is all that's here because the DC to DC power supply is being fed power through the harness. The audio is going out through the harness. So the only thing I actually had to modify, on that harness that I purchased that would just be for any normal off-the-shelf radio was the orange line, which is for illumination. I don't need. So I unhooked the pin and hooked it into the pin for the iBus, and that's what I'm using to feed the iBus line.
Could we use a different pin, like if we like our dimmers?
Yeah, you would just need to get another. All the other pins were being used, so you would need to get another line and another pin and hook it into where you want.
Some of them have power antenna.
Yep.
And stuff like that are. I mean, who has a power antenna anymore?
Yep.
So okay, cool. If my car's a 2002, and they didn't have CAN buses until about 2006, I think.
Yep.
So
your car probably is not an iBus, because I think that was a BMW thing.
Okay.
And
yeah, I've never heard that term before.
So it would
have to be analog.
And you could use this for the analog if you have steering wheel controls.
I don't.
So then you wouldn't need this at all, because this device is for allowing your steering wheel controls to work.
Okay. Okay.
All right. So ways that you can do this cheaper. You don't need the DAC. That was probably $100.
Okay.
You could get away with just hooking it into the headphone jack on the tablet. It's just your audio quality would suffer a little bit, because these are notoriously not very good. You also don't need to pay the $150 for this bezel frame. You can get a $20 doubled in, and you just deal with the fact that there's some extra space on the sides. Or you can make your own. You don't need the steering wheel controls. So these were I believe about $30 for the USB one. This one was, I believe, about $90. So all in, when I built this originally, it was about $500 total for everything. You can get away with just the $120 for the tablet, a wiring harness, and a DC to DC power adapter. I
would want the what do you call this?
The DAC.
Yeah. I mean, my music. I want the highest quality music.
I would too, and that's why I went with them. Yeah. And there are even other ones. There is a lower grade one that a lot of people are using that is, I think, $25.
Okay.
The reason why I didn't like that one, though, is because the audio out on the back is left-right RCA. So I would have to make another adapter cable so that left-right RCA could go into my harness.
Well, wait a minute. Let's talk about the RCA, because if I'm running a remote amp in the trunk, and I've got RCA cables going to that amp, one set for the sub, one set for the fronts, and one set for the back. How would I incorporate that here?
Well, you'd have to, assuming it's a similar setup to mine, you would still have to splice the rear and the front channels together.
Okay.
Because you're only going to get left-right stereo out of it. But then you can run it into the back, run it into the amp, and it should work fine. Since I'm not running an amp, well, I am, but it's in the trunk.
It's in the trunk.
I wanted something a little bit simpler.
It's a factory amp?
Factory amp.
Okay.
In this case, it's the factory Harman Kardon amp that came with the vehicle. You could run whatever kind of amp you want to use.
So it's already powered and everything.
It's already powered. There was still, just like you mentioned, they still have the blue line, which famously people forget to hook up, which is the on-off line for the amp.
Yep.
And I just looped it back into the power, so that when it feeds power to the system, it kicks it on.
Yep.
And there is one more piece of software that I want to show you. All right, so with the tablet installed back in the car, we're actually going to start the car this time so we can get some telemetry. So by default, it automatically opens up this telemetry software here, which gives me some very, very basic stuff: range, outside temperature, miles per gallon, so a few different things, engine temperatures, how much fuel I have left, that kind of stuff. But I have something better too. So I have, under the dashboard, we can't see it, I have a Bluetooth OBDII adapter. So if I go into some software that I like called Dash Command, and we let it initialize and we let it connect later.
So it's Bluetooth, so you don't have a wire hanging out of your OBDII port.
Yep.
And if a mechanic needed to access your OBDII port,
unhook the adapter.
Okay.
So then you see now it's connected. And all right, so now if we click dashboard, we have more stuff. So I have RPM, I have at this moment boost vacuum, which I don't use because I don't have a turbo on here. So we click it, I usually switch it over to fuel economy. Then we have acceleration, power, and torque, which I usually prefer to have timing, intake temperature, and coolant temperature. And this is getting real-time readings, so you can see everything's here working.
Do it again.
So there's a little bit of a delay because of the way that the OBDII Bluetooth system works, but you can go even further with this. So we can switch through the menus and we can get miles per gallon readings over the last 5 minutes, 30 minutes, and 3 hours. This one will not tell me the fuel level, the other one will, but it will tell me the flow and the estimated range and all that. Then we can get into some wild stuff too, like various trip information all the way down to carbon emissions and the fuel rates, how much the average speed. I mean, there's just page after page of different kinds of stuff that I can do on my trips. And this one is probably where I get a lot of the use out of. So we can flip through a bunch of different commands here. I think timing can go to fuel trims, coolant can be switched through to load, map can be switched down to a lambda, air fuel ratio. Now you'll notice my car is not giving me that information through my particular OBD system. Your mileage may vary if your OBD is giving you extra information. O2 sensor readings, which this one will, and this is one that I actually wanted to pay attention to more recently to see if we're running lean or rich, speaking of the stuff that you're dealing with the Tahoe. And then we got mass airflow, fuel pressure, and intake temperature, ambient temperature, catalyst temperature, which I don't have. So you can just get so much data through this, all on this tablet. And when I go to the track, because I occasionally will take this car out on the track, I love having this information up here. If you don't like using the normal gauge view, you can go to building your own gauge view.
Get out.
There's also a performance menu where we will get, if you're doing more of a drag strip trial, quarter mile kind of information here. You can get diagnostic information. So if I was running any codes, I could come in here and see what my codes are and reset them. Which this is actually one of my favorite things about having the tablet, is I always have my OBDII scanner on me because it is always in the vehicle.
Sweet.
And then my favorite for when I'm heading out to the racetrack is the mode that will show me in a moment. It will load up the map. Now, of course, we're not at a racetrack right now, so there's not really any map to be loaded. But when I'm on a racetrack, it will show me the track map and start showing me where how my braking zones were doing, where I was accelerating, where I have time to be able to get more time out of it. Keep in mind though, it's using the GPS of the tablet to handle that, and the GPS of the tablet is a 2-second interval. So you're not really going to get great 0 to 60 ratings if you're only updating the GPS sensor every 2 seconds. But it's still really fun to play with. If you happen to be in a Jeep or something other that's doing rock climbing, you can do pitch and roll metering, which I find kind of fun. And then just all the details and settings about the vehicle. But this is my absolute favorite app. There's another one called Torque, which will give you similar information. I find Dash Command to be a better interface. I even have a few people that I know that do amateur racing and keep these mounted in tablets in their race cars so they can keep better eyes on their temperatures and all other kinds of stuff.
All right, Luke, what's the disclaimer?
So the disclaimer is, because this is an Android tablet, you can do anything you normally could do with an Android tablet, including watching movies and videos on YouTube, which is very illegal. So do not do that. Beyond the fact that it is incredibly unsafe, it is very illegal if they find out you're doing that.
Very good. All right. Well, thanks for all the information. We'll, to the best of our ability, I guess we'll put links to everything that you talked about.
Links to everything that I've bought. I have pictures for how the wiring harness is laid out.
Okay, so I can try to include those in the video as well. I appreciate you going through all of this for us, and really, really cool stuff. So I'm excited to have Luke back because we've got some, he's got another BMW that needs some work, and just stay tuned. Comment, like, and subscribe, because more Tahoe stuff, more Colorado stuff, more BMW stuff, and who knows what else we're going to have on the channel. So this is Steve and Luke signing off. Thanks. See ya.